Ding.
Hi,
Hi, Zane.
Don Antonio.
How are we today, Zane?
You know what? I can't complain. I am really enjoying life. I just got through a horrendous stomach bug, and I am so happy to be done with that and be recovering from that experience.
Oof. Yeah. Stomach bug. I don't even like the sound of that, Zane. I don't like
Yeah,
the sound of that.
yeah, it was bad.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to thank those of you who showed up here to watch this. Zane and I were just talking, and if you caught last time I was on, I was talking about maybe we're going to move to a new time zone, time frame, something like that. Because Zane said exactly what I think. You know, it's that time of year and the sun's still out. People should be out playing. I know I want to be out playing. I love to do this, but I love to play too. So,
Yeah.
so I know if that's coming through to me, it's coming through to you. I think that's going to benefit the whole. So we'll figure that out and know what that is. But I want to thank you all for joining us here tonight. And so, well, as we get started, Zane, if you could you please open sacred space for us?
Sure. So if everyone would please take just a moment to breathe, and I just want you to really notice your diaphragm. Really notice that lower belly and breathing into that lower belly. And if you can imagine just that breath, I like to imagine it actually coming in through my navel. Like I'm breathing in my navel and breathing out of my navel. And just by doing that, you're dropping down. It's that simple. You're dropping down into your heart. Now, I know we're talking about the navel, but the navel's part of the heart. It's where the gut brain and the heart brain merge. So we really want to go into that place. And just taking a few very gentle breaths there. And I just want you to start to notice your field of personal space around your body. And just feel it. Just sense it for all it's worth. What is it? How close is it to you? How far away? Is it expanded? Is it really close? Is it round? Does it look like an egg or a circle? Or does it look like an amoeba? Does it have some parts that are closer to your body than others? Nothing's wrong. This is all good. Just you're taking an assessment of your sacredness, of your space at this moment. And just continuing to breathe into your stomach, noticing whatever you notice. Ay, pachamama, ambui, pachamamita kuna, ambui. Hayaya, mama aipa, ambui. Machakwaipa, ambui. Hayaya, korea suyo, ambui. Hey, Mama Uno, Mama Kocha, Mama Kia, Hatin Lepai, ambui, Yachay Nikita, yambu, Antarango, Chokin Chinchay, ambui, Kuku Waiku, Security Waiku. Hey! Wilka Waira Kuna, ambui. Silvara Kinte, ambui. Rixivichi Waiku, Mishkikita, Sikata, Sonkoikuta, Siakari Waiku, ambui. Pichaisuyo, ambui. Contisuyo, ambui. Hey, inti, taita, atan kuntar, atan onkas, ambui. Yachay Nikita. Kanchaykita. Sonkoikuta. Ambui. We wait to quote the Great Spirit, the Spirit that moves in all of us. We ask you to be here with us. Introduce yourself in our lives. Let us see you in our ceremonies. Hayaya. Now, picturing that field of personal space around you and imagining a golden egg, scintillating, crackling energy above your head, like an Alka-Seltzer, reaching your fingers up into that ball and spreading it out through your entire energy field. And as it goes through your field, it makes it smoother, rounder, more complete. Bringing your hands to prayer position in front of your heart. And whatever the vibrational love that you can manifest at this moment, it doesn't matter how high or low that vibration is, whatever vibration of love you can create it and imagine you are pulling a thread or a blanket up out of your heart and throwing it around everyone on this call, bringing us all together, that the wisdom may be shared and be known in our hearts and not in our minds. Oh.
There's some really beautiful frequencies coming in, bathing upon us. So I'm going to invite anyone that's interested and would like to connect with these, just kind of allow yourself to be open to receive. I like to use those words. I'm open and ready to receive. And sink into those words. And what does that feel like for you to be fully open? You're letting down your guard. You're allowing yourself to just float in this space with us. And allow yourself just to remain open and connected as we go on whatever journey and whatever we talk about today. Thank you for opening, Don Zano.
Thank you, Don Antonio.
Yeah. So I do have something I do kind of want to talk about a little bit. And that's, it kind of coincides with some stuff like we talked about a while back. And what it was is paying attention to the opportunities that pop up in your life.
Yeah.
So when you're on this path of ascension and you're working in that direction and you're asking the universe and putting yourself in alignment for these things to come, it stands like we've kind of went through this before, like, you know, it's going to probably show up the way it needs to, maybe not the way you want it to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I started to really pay attention to my own reality and some things that were going on. And the capability of that kind of happened, and some things we talked about before, is since the eclipse, for me, it's like a new sun has shown up, like a new beam of living energy and consciousness that's far more advanced than the one we had that was projecting this, whatever this.
I agree.
So whatever has happened since then, incrementally, my emotional and spiritual intelligence continues to broaden and expand. And I become more and more aware of my behavior and the choices I make, and just deeper and deeper into the subconscious parts of my mind, understanding, really knowing more and more about why I choose what I choose, why I react the way I react. You know, everything we do has some sort of driving purpose behind it. And the more we understand that, we can start to align our energy to work with that the way we want it to, instead of letting it leak out in ways that doesn't help us. And so for anybody that knows me, I've been an HVAC technician for about 30 years. And I've been like semi-retired for the last 5, 6, something like that, 5 or 6, doing it kind of like part-time, you know, at points more, sometimes less. But I didn't really like it. Like, so doing it all the time, like I remembered as I went through this journey, like, hey, there was some point when I was younger, I did like it. And then so I started training. So that was the entrainment. I started taking myself back to there so I could feel that. So I was feeling back. I could go back and pick up that frequency. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm going back to before whatever happened brought me to this mental creation in my mind. I fucking hate HVAC. So what's happened. So in my reality, as my consciousness starts to open more and I start to pay attention, I started to notice how resistant I was to it. And I wanted to learn more about it. So what I started to do is I started to kind of come out of retirement, started to reach out to people, ask them if they want their air conditioners cleaned and stuff like that, and then, as soon as you open that door, it all starts to kind of flood in. So a bunch starts to come in, and everything was perfectly designed and put me in certain places of challenge where at this point now I can, instead of falling into the pattern and getting upset, I can totally see what's happening, and I'm fully aware of what's going on. And I'm also so present now in what I'm doing. It's not because I was doing it for so long, and I trained myself at some young age to use pretty much, I called it grit, but all it was is my pain. I was using my pain to fire me up to essentially attack the job. Like that's how my mind was, like, kind of like, we got to kick its ass. That's how it was for me. And so that's how I drove that. That's how it was for me. It was just pure like vileness or something. That
you can't run with that too long.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And also, there's resistance too, because my lung disease and everything, has direct connection to that, what I was doing, being around a lot of different things, gases, asbestos. I had lots of interaction with asbestos, tons and tons of interaction with fiberglass insulation, phosgene gas, which is essentially mustard gas. So there's lots of like hazards involved that were bringing up lots of fear for me too. But being able to now, there's just these new frequencies of consciousness coming, and like ways I can see that I couldn't see before. Like these blind spots started to open up in a really kind of beautiful way. And then so what it was is that was the opportunity. The opportunity showed up that, hey, I could step into HVAC and kind of see how it feels again. Like if something's telling me to do that. So instead of me passing that up, I jumped right into it and I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually enjoy this. And like, it was like a new day. It was like, nah, I have this whole new world in front of me, because that was another thing. I had this mindset in my mind, like, no, I want to be a successful, whatever title it is. I'm a shaman is what I am. I can fit in many other hats all over the place, but that's what I am. And that's just that's a function. That's not who I am. It's a function I serve in this space is what it is. But being that's the thing, is I chose to go with that opportunity, just like we were talking about, open that opportunity, because I had tons of resistance, because I thought I was going to be going backwards. Yeah. I thought I'm going back to this thing that I finally escaped from. That's how my mind was looking at it. And I was like, why are you agreeing to that? Like, what's happening? And all these questions started to kind of melt together, and like the whole illusion of whatever my resistance was, I didn't even really need to take it apart. It just kind of melted and fell away. Like, oh, cool. I didn't have to really work on it. I just had to let go. And as I let it go, plop, falls to the floor. And now I'm out. And what I'm doing is I'm just letting it flow, letting it happen. And it's the coolest thing is whoever it is that I'm showing up to, it's almost like clockwork. There's other reasons why I'm there, and I become fully aware of that. It looks like I'm there. It's not heating in air, it's healing in air. That's because it's those things kind of happen in the reality, the way it unfolds now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like some of the story I just wanted to share. Is since the new sun, that's something that I feel we kind of are talking about here. I'm feeling vast things opening up, and if it's happening in me, it means it's happening in you and everyone else. Is what it means.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we are at a time where things are shifting. And I have this vision, and it just keeps coming to me. And that vision is that the future is not about the shaman anymore. The future is stepping into where everyone has a shaman in their family and friend group, and that it becomes an organic thing again. And by doing that, it starts to gain a level of sacredness that it may have lost in the last couple decades, with the way things have been operating. And it's okay, because we needed to go there. That was that whole sun shifting. And I really think we're in a much better space now as humanity in general, that we're moving forward. And another thing that I really truly believe more than anything else, it's just like when you become a devoted monk in many traditions, not the Christian tradition, but in many traditions, including some Tibetan traditions and stuff, you have a period of time where you really develop yourself. And during that period of time, you first develop your ability, and then you start teaching people, and you're doing all this stuff, but really the monastery is taking care of you. And it's so that you can get to a point. And then there's a point that comes where you step into mastery. And mastery has to do with you going back into the world that you came from. But going back with like you said so elegantly with your story, with this brand new mindset and all these tools and all of this work. And then you realize, wait a second, I don't need a classroom of students to do healing. In fact, the people who are coming to me at that classroom, they're ready for healing no matter where they go. But grace can put me into a place where I don't even have to acknowledge what I'm doing. All I have to do is vibrate my vibration that I've come across this person, and they get a chance to be uplifted by my vibration in one way or another, or vice versa. Sometimes we're the ones being uplifted by their vibration. But I loved a show when I was a kid, and it was called Highway to Heaven. And I know that a lot of people will think that that's kind of corny, but it was Michael Landon. And for me, really, that always seemed like the work, I mean, he was an angel, and what would he do? He'd go and he'd sign up as a handyman at some place, and he'd just be, and he wouldn't be doing anything all that magical. He'd just be a guy fixing things, and just the conversations he got into. And in my mind, still to this day, that's really how I think it all works. I really think. And that's why we can't, our perceived ideas of things can block our intuition, or it can twist it a little bit. And that's why it's so important, like you were saying, to really get into any of those resistance places. I mean, if you already know why you're resistant to something, then that's okay. You've already done the work, and you can decide, hey, yeah, I need to be resistant to that. But if it comes up and you're just not really 100% sure why this is, or is it true anymore, then test yourself. It's your life. You get to experience all this stuff and play around with it. And I really, what I was going to say is, I believe that's mastery. Mastery of the medicine is when you can go back into the world and not present it as the medicine anymore, but just present it as yourself and the things you do in day-to-day life. And through that, grace operates. I really do believe that. I believe through that, grace operates. And I think that's where we're going in this new sun. I think we're heading back to something much more organic, or I don't know really how to put it, just something that has such a warmer vibration to it than the more cold intellectual vibration of the 90s, really the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I think that's finally faded away. I think we're finally past that really, and maybe it's because of AI. It can do all that stuff for us now. We don't have to be so brainy with it all the time. Maybe that's what's freeing humanity, or just another symptom of this whole shift happening. But I love that story. And I've been doing this work for 20 years. I can't even count, because I was doing work way before I was this. I was doing spiritual work when I had no titles for it. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know how to explain what I was doing in any way, shape, or form, but I was still doing it. So I've been doing this so long. But there's always been periods of my life where I would pick up other jobs, and go back into the workforce and things like that. And usually those were such beautiful experiences for me. In fact, restful experiences for me, to tell you the truth. Right. Times that I got to recharge my battery, which will sound so strange probably to a lot of people who are listening. They would be like, no, that's what I came from. I can't stand to be there anymore. But really, once you've got these tools and they've started to become yours, and you've reformed yourself with them, suddenly those things that used to be challenges for you just aren't, or they aren't in the same way. Or when it does rear its head and you get to see it, it's such a blessing, because you're getting to see it. you get to see it in real time. And that's one thing that I've always, and I'm sure you've shared with all of your students also, all of these techniques and everything, they're worthless in the moments that you're happy. They're worthless in the moments that you're just having a great time. You don't need them in those moments. But in those moments when something pops up and now all of a sudden you're challenged with something, that's when to use them. And honestly, that's the hardest time to use them. But once you start to use them in those real life situations, that's when mastery really comes to you. And then when you speak to people who want to hear, when you do have people who want to hear, maybe friends or family or someone that just come around to listen to you, you have such a wealth to honestly give them because you have tried it out. You have mastered it in the laboratory of your own life, not in a theoretical philosophy of life.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot there, Zane. Thank you. A lot through there. A lot of woo. That's what I was talking about. That's the frequencies I was talking about.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too, man. I really am. I'm switching up so much stuff, and really I'm prioritizing things that I didn't prioritize in the past, and now I'm like, you know what? This is what's important.
Yeah,
these things are important, not those other things. Those things are good, but those are going to take care of themselves. But these things close to my heart, these are the important ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels. I can tell it's just. It's a cycle. It's like I can tell it's a season. It's like I'm in a season. Like even just like my exercise and things has changed. Like in the last couple months, I've been more focused on like working my skeleton and my like connective tissue. And so you get deeper into your central nervous system by using heavier loads. So normally, like I train into like rep ranges of like 10 to 12. Well, I've been training like pretty heavy, like sometimes in like 3 to 5, sometimes 1 to 3. So using really heavy weights, but low repetitions and just doing some more sets. And so what this does is this stimulates a lot deeper into the nervous system. All kinds of things start to kind of open up there. It's just part of whatever this evolutionary space I'm in right now has guided me to. It's just something like it guided me to begin to do some things different. Like there's certain practices I'm not doing, other ones I've adopted. There's the way I'm just my awareness in general is just totally different. I would say like how you were saying, like using the tools, that's precisely right. That's so what it was for me is I was able to, I'm already aware that I'm here to learn something. So I show up at this job that normally I had nerves, I had resistance to go do it, all kinds of things, but I wanted to watch. I just wanted to see, what is he doing? What is he thinking? And then I could totally observe my ego mind, the damaged parts of my mind, disagreeing essentially with reality, saying it should be some other way than it is. And like, almost like, since it's not easy, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's what my mind was trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, it's not,
that's a real issue.
Yeah.
I think that's an issue that happens a lot in the metaphysical world, and and I don't mean any disrespect to the people who practice this way, because we're all where we're supposed to be all the time, and we're developing what we need to develop at that time. But feel good spirituality, it really lies to you sometimes. There's a big thing out there that when you're on the right path, everything's always easy going on smooth. And that's not the truth. The truth is you can make anything that's going on in your life easy going on smooth if you're willing to get out of the way. And that doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean that it's not heavy lifting or, get down into it. But it just means that you can find a gear inside of yourself where you quit sabotaging yourself in those moments. And that's when it's easy going on smooth. It doesn't mean everything just magically manifests around you. It means that all of a sudden you have energy that you never knew you had, reserves of energy you never knew you had, because I think humans don't understand how much energy it takes to play that loop in your head of how much you're disliking something. Okay, you told yourself you disliked it. Now you can do an action about that, and you can decide later what action you're going to do. But if you're in the middle of it, then you can say, okay, I've heard you. Now I'm turning you off and I'm putting you in the back. That's not repression. That's not suppression. That's listening to it and then saying, you know what, that's thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will act on that as soon as I can, but right now there's this job at hand and I got to get it done. It's just like if you're driving and you get nauseous, well, you can't just let go of the wheel and start puking out the window. You have, even if you're puking out the window, you have to keep your consciousness in control and drive that thing. And
I've done it. So.
yeah, I have to. But I mean, that's something that there is a whole school of thought out there, and I think we're getting away from that school of thought with this whole movement too, because people are getting more into, wait a second, there's a deeper visceral experience at play here, and that can't be wrong just because it's visceral or it feels this way or that way. I really think we're looking at a wake up here. Of a different type, and maybe one that hasn't been around for a couple thousand years, honestly, at least since the birth of the industrial age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's something I've been saying, is I can feel we're somewhere we've never been before. It's like I can tell we were riding some sort of wave before. Now it's like we're leading some sort of wave now. Like it just feels, it's a different kind of feeling. And everything that kind of you're explaining here was just, that's all forms of like coherence and healing that's happening, within all of us. I've seen it. I'm seeing it all over. I'm seeing people just go through these drastic changes, become just really aware of their behavior, the things they've decided to limit themselves to, all kinds of things, just opening themselves up, no longer victimizing themselves. Like these are amazing things. But I am also aware that like that's the cross section of people and energy which I attract towards me. So it also makes me aware that, well, that means that there's heaviness that's growing in the same direction.
Yeah, because there has to be that balanced dualism, that balancing act. But I do believe that it's just like our travel through the universe. We don't know if we're spiraling up or down, because out there's no up or down anyway. And I think it's the same way. Though there is heaviness out there, I think the quality of it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit on something that really not triggered, but inspired me there when you said that. And that is, we have all been waiting for this prophetic time to come. And I really think we're in it. I really think that we aren't just at the beginnings of it or whatever. I think we're in it. And I think we're far enough into it that we are beyond the social program of those who created the prophecies. They don't know where we're going to go, and they never did. They just said, you have this opportunity. Now, they don't know what that opportunity could be or how we will seize on it. And we don't know yet. And it could be another 50, 100 years, or maybe even 200 years before we're actually settled as to where that's going. And it doesn't matter the time frame, but we're there. And we're at the point where it's time for us to start drafting our own, like you just said, our own paths forward, our own frequency forward. And I think that we are liberated now. I think there is a liberation going on, at least with the awakened ones. Because like and I don't quote him too often, but the Master Jesus said there'll be pain and suffering always. These things are eternal because all things are. But look at what you've got. Look at the good things you've got. I think we're at a point where people won't be trying to practice that. That will be natural for them. That people will start to just notice what's good around them. And that's the cure for many of the ills that have been put onto us, because usually we are stuck in a rat race of trying to achieve something, and we always try to achieve what's almost impossible and put it right in front of us, and we keep running toward it, where that wisdom is, you already have the good things if you just appreciate them. If you just look at them and notice them around you and start to appreciate them, you'll notice what the real good in your life is. And then you'll know where is a wise place to put your energy, anything that leads to growing that, or where is a bad place to put your energy, not so wise place, anything that detracts from that good thing you already have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has a lot to do with training our attention.
Yeah.
What do I like to pay attention to? It's that. And so that folds out into so many different ways. because how do you get there? Being present in the moment, and you can create sacredness in all moments. Like that was another thing I found myself. It wasn't just this physical experience in my work. My work was a very spiritual experience because I'm fully aware that everything I'm working with is alive and communicating to me in some sort of way. And I'm having an experience together with these things. And so all of that feeling of it just changes everything. Like it's not just before my mind had this idea like, like even though I knew it was alive, like I separated the condenser, the outdoor unit of the air conditioner from myself. Like it's this other thing. But all the while though, I always knew it was me. But I had this resistance to it. I had this form of resistance that was part of the subconscious program that I couldn't see it. It wasn't there. It wasn't available. I didn't have the capacity to be able to see it.
Yeah, I love hearing this because I think what we have just shared in this little, what has it been, like 30 minutes?
31 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, what we have just shared in this like 30 minutes may be the most important things that we have really shared this entire time we've been doing SOAR. This might be the key that everyone listening suddenly, this might be what wakes them up, or if they aren't already awake, or the ones that are awake, maybe it will encourage them to push their limits, because that's what these traditions are from Peru. More than anything else, these traditions of Peru, they teach you how to stand in your power and then how to push the limits of what you think you are or what you think you can stand. And it's not like a macho thing of pushing your limits. It's a gentle push. It's not balls to the wall. It's like, okay, let me push a little bit and see. Now I'll receive the energy back. Okay. Now I can read that. I know if it's Huja, what to do with it. I know if it's Sami, what to do with it. Now I'll push a little further. And as we do that, we fall into communication with the thing. Even if it's a car part, because I've never worked on air conditioners, but I've worked on cars before. And I can imagine there's a similarity there. And the thing is, you're looking and you're like, this is so simple. Take these bolts out, take this thing off, put these bolts in, put it back on. But then you go and you try to take a bolt off and you're just not getting it. And it's at such a weird angle. And you didn't know there was a spring behind it. And now you're trying to push the thing back in. And, I've had that experience so many times with what should be a simple repair that I should be able to do. Plumbing's the same way. Whenever I've worked with plumbing, it's like you think, this is going to be a 30-minute repair. You're there like 3 hours just trying to get it started.
Yeah, so you touched right on something that the language in my head, because I like to train my language. I have this method I use. It's called ABS, awareness, breath, and self-talk. So having an awareness of your behavior, as soon as that happens, I change my physiology. I know what to do with my breath. I'll move into a breathing pattern, however it works at that time. And then I start to install new words. What am I saying? What am I agreeing to? Why am I agreeing to that? It doesn't actually work for me. Well, what should I replace that with? This. And I start to kind of program in that sense. But that was the should be. Like, that's what always gets us in trouble, because you already have this you've like, oh, it should be so easy. It should be. So since it doesn't align, that's exactly what I was saying. When we are not it goes outside of our expectations.
Yeah.
And then so there's resistance and anger and frustration. And every time that started to arise, like, I don't think I even swore one time. I don't think I had no memorable reaction to anything that I wasn't allowing myself to just experience and feel and go through it, and able to change it, and able to just, all it took was that awareness that, something's coming. And the first thing I started to do is start to breathe, and I start to open my gaze. Everything opens up, and I just let myself just be here for a second. Just, hey, man, you know what? Everything's okay. It's still easy. It's just a bolt. It just wants to challenge me. So this way I can use my neurology. I can use my brain, and that's how it is. So this tradition at a deep core for me is what it's given to me is an ability to access forms of light and intelligence that have allowed me to continue to allow me to expand my nervous system. So my entire feeling and awareness of my life continues to become more and more beautiful, but also the heavy stuff's heavy too. But I can see how that has to be that way.
Yeah.
Because help. Like I have no resistance. Like I don't really, nothing's bad. Things
Yeah.
happen. I might not like it in the moment because there's a program running that tells me to resist it. So it's not wrong or anything. It's just kind of how it's built. And
Yeah.
then I kind of, that's there, and I become aware, oh, look, an opportunity, a trigger has happened. I have this opportunity for myself to be able to expand on this if I want to.
Yeah.
The other things are, is there's certain, we're silly. Humans are silly. There's patterns we become fully aware of and we lie to ourselves, or try to. You can't really lie to yourself. You become aware of the pattern and then you're just trying to, I don't know what to do right now. I'm still comfortable. I'm still comfortable enough where I'm not ready to make a change, because
Yeah.
we won't change unless we're uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, and that's perfectly okay too at that point, because that's where you have to be there before you can be at the next stage, you know.
Right.
And I really believe more than the healing techniques, more than doing healings for other people and stuff. I believe the gold of the tradition is exactly what we're talking about right now. That it changes something within you where you can go about whatever you do in life in a different way. Now, every time, and I know you know this, but I'm just saying it for everyone out there.
Right.
Every time that you process something like that on the job site, things take notice. The land itself notices. The land itself notices that you just did that. You left an imprint of that ability there. Any people walking up and down the street or anywhere else, though they don't notice with their conscious awareness, their bubble does, because our bubbles talk all the time, and they take that home with them. And then just maybe they get frustrated at their child or something, and they handle it a different way. And because they've done it once that way, it becomes a memory. And they might feel good about themselves for doing that. Well, that ingrains that memory and it makes it stronger. And then they're more likely to do it again. They might not do it every time that situation pops up, but just like we talk about our tools, when we do remember to do it and we do it, we wire a stronger neural connection there. And eventually those things, just like martial arts or riding a bike, become memory. And the subconscious is like, oh, this is what you want me to do with this stimulus. And it just does it. And then you're not even doing it anymore. And that happens. I think that is what we have the most to give everyone, because our words will never give that. Our words can't give that, but just someone doing that, someone angry in a store or something, and then being able to just set themselves back down and just calm down and everything, and to process that. Everyone in that store or anyone that walks through that place you were standing, even probably for 12 to 14 hours, will get a download of that energy. I know I get downloads of energy when I walk into stores and stuff, and it's why some stores I don't go into. You know?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like totally. So like I totally agree with all of that frequency coming in. So that's kind of how like my perception of it is like how I was saying it. It's basically like you have a beam and a bubble that is like a neural. We're parts of a neural network, and we're coming online. Where as we come online, it straightens out this neurite and then starts to spread out from it, starts to reach out. And so we perceive that as spiritual sensitivity, because we're reaching out into this living energy that's not separate from us, these parts of us that are us. It's like early on. So that was one of my favorite things. So like my early communication with spirit, and I was asking questions, it explained it to me as, imagine you're part of a brain that's had a stroke. I'm like, oh, I see. And all these other things you think are people are also parts of this brain. And you're all systemically not working with coherence. Like, oh, so what you want to do is you can improve all of this by improving your coherence. Like,
absolutely.
Oh. And then so once you don't have to like look for that. Once it starts to open, your mind starts to open to that, whatever it is that's meant for you kind of just shows up.
Yep.
Like, well, what is it that's meant? That's why I think a lot of people get stuck in mindsets of spiritual seeking, when most of the time, from my experience in my own personal space and seeing many other people, I've seen most people, it gravitates to them. They may or may not be aware when it gets there, but I watch it come to them. And it's like starts to draw in towards us, starts to pull in towards us. And as we continue to use this thing, as we continue to learn, it's a deep form of intelligence. It's another way I explain this feeling of what we are. What are we? We're this amazing cosmic intelligence that we don't even really understand what we are yet. Like there's a really deep level of understanding just for this phase of being. And there's so many others beyond this. But it's as it continues, I'm becoming more and more aware just how perfect and precise this is. These bodies, these interfaces in this slowed down energetic reality can take in so much information. So much information. It's like watching instant replays in slow motion. Why do we do that? So we can catch all of the detail. We're catching this deep. We're like the drain. We're like a sieve or like a colander or something. We're like straining out all of the impurity, and we're coming out the other end purified. It's like we're straining through the light, straining through everything, and it's starting to not kill anything, but everything's becoming more and more organized. Even the things we're calling bad are starting to make more sense. Like, oh, I see what has to happen. I can see the balance for that. But that takes a lot of work because we have primary emotional triggers that are implanted into us from the past experiences. So we can't see things as they are. We're reacting to them about what we think they are. Because the biggest truth, the biggest thing that's occurred to me recently, and it happens a lot, the replaying in my mind is nothing actually has any meaning until I assign meaning to it. And once that happens, it's like, if I can pay attention in that capacity, everything changes. The whole reality becomes something else because I can assign any that's what this means. That means that you are so powerful that if you choose to, you can assign meaning to everything in a different way if you wish. And nobody can stop you.
And the way well, and aside to that, to add to that, I see that we were born with two incredible powers, that everything is conscious, everything is alive, and everything has these powers in some measure. But the God, goddess, creator, creatrix saw it wise and necessary to give humanity an extra amount of both of these. And that is emotion, or I should call it passion and imagination. And with our passion and imagination, however we use it, to a large degree, will paint what the reality is for us. It doesn't paint what it is for anyone else, but we have the power to create spiritual beings. Because everything is a spiritual being already, we have the power to create brand new ones that tell us or organize the information of our reality in different ways for us. One thing I loved of what you were just saying is, here in this slowed down dimension, there's so many strings of information. And it's absolutely true. When you get out there into the spiritual dimensions, it's a lot more like being in space in a way. You can tap into a string of information and you can start reading it, and it's so pure. It's so just that particular information, and you can crystallize it. Here we have every single thing and every entity, every blade of grass, every pebble, every piece of dirt is a whole string, a code of energy, is a code of information. And when we're living right here, we're accessing all those codes at the same time. And then we're using our power of imagination and our passions to create what that means to us. And that's our power as a co-creator, is deciding what it means to us. And then once we do that, we create a spiritual reality we're living in. That's our real power here. We can create a spiritual reality we personally live in. But that doesn't mean that it changes. The underlying experience could be exactly the same as the guy beside you who's doing the same thing you're doing. Yet you can have this beautiful experience, or you can have the most horrific experience. And it's up to you to decide in the moment, like you said, and you gave every tool that's needed to do it. Right here, you just gave every single tool that's needed to reprogram yourself in the moment, because you are much like a computer programmer. You are programming your field of energy around you is programming your soul's journey. It is your soul, and it doesn't really exist. That's the whole thing. It's made up of matter and something that doesn't exist. And when those two things come together, you have a soul. Your body and spirit come together. There's a soul. And in that soul, there is meaning and there is purpose. And that purpose can drive you forward if you learn how to drive your imagination and passions. But the thing is, they're like beasts. And if you don't learn how to tame them, they will tame you and they'll drive you. And I've been driven. I've been driven even for good things, my work and things like that. I have driven myself too hard. Too hard in the past, exhausted my energy, exhausted all kinds of stuff, thinking, oh, it's for the greater good, when really it was for an ego program inside my own head that I needed to fulfill. Where if I could only have stepped into the full power of my imagination, the full power of my passions at that moment, I could have said, no, I don't, let me take that energy I'm putting so hard over there and let me put it over here because this is being neglected. And this is the good stuff. This is the stuff I love. So let me really put it there. I'm not liking all this other stuff, even though I've told myself I am loving it, you know, and you all have that power. And everything Anthony said, I love all of this that you're saying, because he's giving you practical ways of doing it. Now, it's like anything else. You got to dial that in for you. Just like everything I've taught Anthony, everything I've showed him. I like to say it is showing. I'm showing or helping them to remember. I'm not really teaching it, but everything I've shared, everything I've helped someone to remember, the only way they remember it is when they dial it in right for them. Until they find that right thing, it's just a cliche. That means nothing. It doesn't mean a thing. It sounds kind of pretty and it might be a little mentally inspiring, but once you dial it in and you actually find it, you find it in yourself, and you might never even use those words that your teacher used. But once you find it for yourself, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is it. This is it. And yeah, I don't have words for it either. And I don't know how to share it with others except for to keep showing it to them,
That's it.
by my own actions in real time, in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly like how I perceive it in that neural network kind of thing. We're sending coded information. So that it's like it's a form of unlocking in a sort of way. And it's up to the cell of itself, of course, to take this information and metabolize it and exchange its energy. But that's precisely how I see what's happening. And as all the people we touch, look at what we're doing. It's really aware to me now. We're creating a lot of leaders. I can see there's a lot of leaders. There's very wonderful people with deep spiritual connections that are growing into new forms of being. And I love seeing that. It just blows my mind because it's everything I could see from the beginning when I got here, which feels like it's been a few years, but it's like 100 years since I've come here. And it's like, whoa, well, this is really amazing what it is. But that's something that was really good. You're reminding we're reminder cells. Your beings reminding to me was that. It's almost like this. It's almost like you were helping me to crack open certain like almost like a safe or something. Like there's like whispers that were coming through. There's all this kinds of, especially at the beginning when I first started training with you, you would show up in my space all the time, like this version of you, bloop, and it pops up and it starts to talk to me and it starts to tell me these certain things or point things to me. Or there was lots of times where you'd show up in my ego programs and you'd be like nodding your head in disapproval somewhere in the back over here. Like, damn it, he's right. That's insane. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much, and we're all, and I see you as a divine mirror as well. It's just we're all so, like you said, interconnected in this world. We're all part of something greater than we know, and we're sharing so much. And just using that analogy of neurology and neurons. Of course, neurons that fire together, wire together. But what people don't often realize is when you change a behavior, when you consciously change it, even if you're really, every part of you doesn't want to change it, but you do it anyway, you prune a neuron connection. And that makes it easier to do the behavior you would more like to do in the future. So it's not just about wiring the new connections. It's also about slowly pruning those old connections as well. And those connections, even though they can wire back together when you do that behavior again, it's not as strong as it was. And then you prune it and it prunes further and further apart. So it's working actually from two different angles at the same time. And everything, that's like the master shaman energy in this world is everything you get through with your tools, everything you're able to process and make okay in your world. helps everyone else make that okay in their world. You know, they have to accept it to some degree, but the energy's there for them to accept it. And we're getting to the point now of a critical mass of soul memory on this planet. You know, it used to be, we were there a long time ago, back in the hunter-gatherer days. And then, you know, during the last really good golden age, we were there. But now we're getting ready to go back into there. And it's really starting to program. And that's why I say, I think it's going to be so organic now. I think and, you know, of course, I myself am a spiritual teacher, but I think the age of spiritual teachers and gurus and stuff are coming to an end. Yep. And I think that's a good thing. I wholeheartedly think that's a good thing. And I think that what we'll see is it will separate things. And we'll start to see that there's a whole lot of people out there who are really vying for power and not for the progression of others. They're vying for their own power because they haven't found it yet in those fields. And I think I think people are ready to step away from that and to step into an organic spirituality. And like the Andean prophecies said, it won't be the spirituality of the past. It won't be that anymore. It will be something that had created the platform to create. But it will be something brand new, and it will be redefined for this new age that we're entering. And I think it's really going to be something just so beautiful and so just part of humanity, just part of us. I'm really looking forward to it. I know I've been the whole time we've been doing this show, I've been kind of talking about that because I really have felt that energy going that way. But especially after these eclipses and Easter, where it fell, whether you practice Easter or you practice S.O.A.R or whatever holiday, no matter what, that was the rising of the season, the rebirth, and it happened between two eclipses. I mean, that is just so beautiful. And then the northern lights that we just keep getting. I mean,
we're obviously highly skilled dreamers.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we
this way with me. That's
we've just moved, you know, we've moved the needle, and now it's time to define the future for ourselves, define the path forward for ourselves. And as we do that through this field of grace, we all ascend together. Yep. We all ascend together. Even the person who is the least awake and causing the most trouble in the universe is ascending. Their energy is starting to ascend because there is nothing else that can be done, because one law of the universe is nothing ever stays the same.
Nope.
So it's all switching.
Change.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I really have loved this particular show. I love them all, but this one has got.
We're hearing a new sun. You know, that's what's happening. It's going to keep evolving. Something that you mentioned, the time of the traditional ideas of spiritual teacher are ending. That's what's happening. There's just what's going to happen is just be a new form, and we just don't call them like how we're already starting to become aware. We're not teachers as much as we help the system remember. That's a kind of what's that. We're helping a system of life remember itself through me remembering myself, whatever that is, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what it is. Most likely, so like right when you were talking about it, the first thing is one of my guides came for, so they'll just be new types of teacher beings, and then it started to give me these like flash visions, and so they're just in the forms of energy, like, you know, like people you and I are helping to remember, and all the people we touch in our web of living energy that's raising frequency and consciousness, not just us, not just you and me, but everything we're touching and in contact with in an energetic sense, and raising that. And so what that'll do is that just will continue. It'll show up less in our works. We won't have to work as much to be a shaman because it'll just show up. Whatever it's meant to happen, it will just show up, and it'll organize itself, because we're still in kind of a chaotic space where we're still working in some sort of way with the system, learning how to organize, get things to people and all these things together, because it doesn't know yet. We don't know yet. We're starting to understand, and it happens mostly through our energy. And now it's all starting to pull in. Everything starts to show up. Then that means that's just like how just you said, that title, that idea that 3D world kind of idea of spiritual teacher or guru kind of just falls away, because we're all recognized, oh, we're all parts of a neural network. We're all just equally as important as the next, because we're like links in a chain or pieces in this web of living energy. And because that's exactly how I perceive reality. For me, I'm fully aware that everything is a web of living energy. Sometimes I forget. When I go into beta brainwave rates, I forget.
Yeah, and it's made, and that's something I just want to jump in there and say, beta's made to do that because beta has a reason for it. It's fight or flight. And
Right.
it's made for when you need to not pay attention to all of that, and you need to physically be the particle of the body, and you need to do something with that body right now. And you can't have processing going off, feeling the energy of the tree down the road when you're about to get hit by a bus, because that's processing power you need right here in this body. And that's what fight or flight's for. The issue is we've been trained in our culture, especially, to operate every moment of every day in mid to high beta. And that's the real problem. People have not for a long time learned how to live in alpha. I think alpha is about to become our operating system on this planet. And it will be like it was supposed to be in the past, where we just pop up into beta when we need to learn something. And what I mean by learn is remember. When we just have to remember I have to do this and this and this, we're going to have to go into a little bit of a beta thing, because we're bringing it into particle, right? If I have to move these bolts around and put this component in, I've got to be maybe in a low level of beta while I do that. But as soon as that's done, we pop right back down into alpha. And to realize that we can actually make decisions and better decisions about things in alpha than we ever could in beta. Beta is made for just really sustained, narrow focus. And that's what it's for. It's for when we need to be more particle than wave. And alpha and theta are for when we need to be more wave than particle. And as we learn to, it's just like gears. We're learning to shift our gears. And you and I have always talked about this. There's no bad consciousness. Beta is not a bad thing. The way we use beta is a bad thing. The psychedelics in and of themselves aren't a bad thing. It's the way people use these things or abuse these things that can make them bad. And so we're doing the same thing. I think maybe just, that brought that whole fruit up. Maybe that's what some of this shift is we're as a planet learning how to operate on alpha frequencies more than beta, because so many of us are operating at alpha now, primarily at alpha.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes, I totally agree. That's how it feels to me too. That's it's a new form of intelligence. There's a form of intelligence, a frequency of being that's accessible to all of us. We all still just have more adaptation to go to be able to accept these lines of energy, these threads of light that are available to us. They're here. I can feel them. I can sense them. I know they're there. I just don't have the intelligence yet to know what to do with them. So it just means I continue on my journey. There's nothing to worry about. Just keep going. Everything's unfolding, and everything is unfolding in such an amazing way in my life, because that's kind of how this got here, because I found myself at a point where, like, all right, I need to create more abundance so I can do more things.
Yeah.
Well, I know I can do that if I go back into HVAC business, but I'm not going backwards, as that's what I was saying to myself.
Yeah.
And then so what that did is that's what started to open up. I started to be able to sit there like, what's stopping me from doing this? That was the question. Like, well, what's going on? And then the total awareness came to where my attention is. Where's my attention going? And I think another thing that I didn't really mention is the rehearsal. So I had some rehearsals too. That's something, it's like a form of meditation that I use. And sometimes I'll just I'll work in a group of people meditating. Who do you want to be? Like, who do you want to be? That doesn't have to be the same every day. That can change every day, because it's not about the picture. It's about the vibration. Who do you want to be? What is it that you want to be? How do you want things? How do you want to feel? You can rehearse these things. And then so I could rehearse myself going into old memories of going into work. So it was like I was traveling into a memory, and then I'd watch how my standard behavior was. And then I'd start to overlay an imaginary scenario where I reacted the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's actually easier. Yeah, that's so much easier. And as soon as your mind sees that, then you can start to kind of do those things in sequence. But that's something, I wrote it down here. It tied into something we were talking about before, and I wanted to add to it. Rehearsal's pretty fun too, to sit there and you don't need a lot of time because, you could if you want to, but that's what stops most people, is sitting there and imagining your future self or your greatest self, or taking time. But the more you practice that, the stronger the neural connection, to just like all other practices. When you do them, what's happening? You're building a relationship. That relationship is a neural connection. And the more you do it, the tighter and more beautiful the relationship is, the more organized and coherent and synchronous it is in the way it moves. And that's how everything starts to expand.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much evidence, and I know you've probably seen some of the evidence out there for mental rehearsal. You could call it meditation, visualization, but rehearsing how you would like to behave or how you would like to hold yourself in a situation actually changes it. They have found that, and I know this from being a musician as well, that you can sit there and just imagine and think about how to play this, because I play guitar. Think about how to do it. And you can sit there and give yourself 5-10 minutes of just thinking about it. And then you sit down and it is almost like you had been sitting there practicing it for 20 minutes. And you're better at it. You may not be perfect yet. And there was another study, I don't remember who did it, but it was actually with fingers. And they were measuring the finger muscles. And they were having people imagining that they were rehearsing, that they were exercising their hand. Now, they didn't see a huge difference, but they did measure a difference in muscle mass in those fingers, even though the person had done no actual physical exercise. And athletes, it started in the 70s, I think. Athletes started visualizing themselves performing things. And now that is a big part of coaching. Where back in then they were thinking, that's kind of weird. How's that going to translate to this? And yeah, sure, there's elements you can't control that your visualization may never bring into, because like I said, every little piece of earth, every blade of grass is a consciousness and an information program. And in your head, you're not bringing every one of those into that. But, maybe you slip a little bit on the grass while you're running or something. But it has shown that you can improve yourself. You can improve yourself with mental rehearsal. Or visualization. It really does have a power. I always say visualization is more powerful than affirmations. You can visualize something just a few times. And if you really and what I call visualizing is when you get completely into it. It's not just a mental picture. Right. It's feeling the moment. Because your body doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and what really happens. That's why you can put yourself into fight or flight thinking about a bad situation that isn't even real. And then you can put yourself into a bad mood just by thinking about something that's completely imaginary. We have that power. And that's all that learning how to shift our own gears, learning how to drive our imaginations and passions. We can transform our lives for the better. And I think that's really the takeaway I have from all the years of spiritual practice that I've done, is learning to drive your imagination and your passion, taking a sovereign control over it. And once you do, noticing it's your reality. You're allowed to play with it any way you want. Noticing what changes once you take a sovereign role in your own life, but realizing that you take it with your imaginations and passions, not with trying to go out there and force reality with this physical particle. There's places and times for that, but that doesn't have the biggest sway on the movement of the present.
I'm get an amen and a boom shakalaka. Amen.
All right. I think really, I don't know how we could improve on this episode. I think we're just going to go right into repeating everything we just said.
I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't really get to any comments today, but I love you all. Thank you so much, Tom. And he says he likes the pruning metaphor. Yeah, the pruning's great. That's neural pruning's a beautiful thing. Prune your trees.
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful. Zane, would you like to close our space this evening?
Sure. I would love to close our space And I'm going to do it in a whole different way because we don't
Cool.
need all that language. We don't need all that. I'm just going to blow to the directions
Cool.
and just everyone becoming very still and just sending out your appreciation, your gratitude, even if it doesn't feel like appreciation or gratitude. Just sending out whatever comes out of you when you say or intend to send appreciation and gratitude for all that has been shared. And feel that stillness. Invite that in. Allow it to move through you, becoming part of every cell of your body. Reaching out and closing that luminous egg around you. Knowing that everything that's been shared has been programmed directly into your soul body, and you will understand it and learn it and know it in those moments when you are ready. Bringing it back to a luminous egg above your head. Bringing that luminous egg down into your forehead, down into your heart, down into your navel. And now, just once again, noticing your field of personal space around you. How's it changed since we began? Take a metric of it now. Does it feel different? Does it vibrate different? Who are you now? Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Don Zano.
Thank you, Don Antonio.
In response to that, I'm seeing lots of new fractal webbing that's like a bright, like neon green and white. So I haven't inspected these things yet, but they're here, and I'm going to try to see if I can access them.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
I'll report back.
All right, sounds good, man.
I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight. Zane, I forgot to ask, is there anything you want to promote or anything?
I got some things going on. I'll tell you what they are, but I've got the Modern Shamans Diet. It will be starting in July or June, rather, 21st. I do not have the link yet. I'm still working on the sales page. So, but I am planning to start it on June 21st.
Cool. Awesome. The next thing we have going on, we have actually a free meditation. So we're going to do a big Zoom. We've invited a bunch of people, and all you have to do is go on our website and register, and then you'll get a Zoom link, and you can come into that meditation. So I don't know what it's going to be about or anything like that. So don't worry about that. Allow it to be a mystery. We're going to come in, we're going to get together as a group, and however that allows itself to open up, and we're going to meditate. And that's a really beautiful thing. And that kind of aligns deeply with what Zane and I are talking about. I'm fully aware if we can get large groups of people together, that creates bigger neural awarenesses and that web. So as we congregate, even though if it's cooler and it's nicer when it's in person. I like in-person stuff, but we also have this beautiful technology that we can transmit everywhere. So what we can do is when we congregate and come together, it's like a breath. It contracts and then expands, and then, or like waves or ripples, they move out and they touch other stuff, and it starts to grow our human intelligence. It leads us further into our ascension process and awakening. It's not something we really have to do. It's not like a doing. We're just choosing to get together and kind of do nothing. That's really what it is.
The art of not doing, as I say. That's the
part, you know, like what's the best we can do as a big group of people? Well, we can all get together and just be really quiet and relax. We can do that and find gratitude in our hearts, you know, like simple things. We can just organizing that together can create huge systemic releases of energy out into the world. And so that's something that I'm going to kind of focus on moving forward, is figuring out ways I can get just larger and larger groups of people just to come together to, you know, I've had beautiful visions that I'm Can't wait for them to show up when we're in arenas or something. It's like these big places just filled with people, so many people, and everybody's tied in, tapped in. You can feel that tapped in feeling all in that big space. You know, like that's going to be a wonderful day. I got the goosies all over.
Beautiful dream. Yes.
Yeah. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Don Zano, for being here. We'll check out and see what we do next. I'm looking forward to that. All right, everybody. Love, peace, and chicken grease, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.